Welcome into another episode of the Division II Baseball Podcast. Before we get started with today's episode, we would like to shout out and let you know that the Division II Baseball Podcast is proudly brought to you by our good friends at Pro Baseball Radar. If you're looking to make smarter recruiting decisions in the transfer portal or on the JUCO circuit, Pro Baseball Radar is certainly your go-to resource for understanding player performance across all levels of college baseball. With their proprietary formula, they've placed stats from over 1,700 programs on the same scale. It helps coaches, athletes, families, and agents compare competition levels like never before. If you need to filter by home state, handedness, or other key factors, that's not a problem. If you want to see how players historically perform when moving up or down conferences, their one-of-a-kind transfer history database has got you covered. So save time, gain an edge, and make data-driven decisions with Pro Baseball Radar. Visit probaseballradar.com or follow them on X at Baseball Radar and schedule a demo today. Pro Baseball Radar, because the right move starts with the right data. Welcome into the Division II Baseball Podcast. Today, we're going to dive a little bit into really one of the hottest teams in the country to start the year. That's UT Tyler. The Patriots, they really jumped off the page when they swept Lubbock Christian. Then they split with the number 2 team in America in Angelo State. Then they come off a dominant weekend against Texas A&M International. Their offense ranks toward the top of the country in many categories. The pitching looked really good this past weekend. And joining us on the podcast to break it all down, the man leading the charge for the now 9th-ranked team in the country by us here at D2 Baseball. It's UT Tyler head coach Brent Porche. Brent, thanks for taking the time to join us and coming on today.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for having me. Like I said, I really appreciate what you guys do for Division II baseball and happy to be on.
Hey, we're happy to have you on, Coach. And, talk a little bit about, what factors have contributed to this 10-2 start.
Yeah, it's, as you guys know and have noted before, we're kind of in a unique situation here in the Lone Star Conference. We play all conference baseball games pretty much, and we start conference baseball in January this year. And so definitely a little bit unique. Something that we haven't done a very good job with in the past is, being ready to go from weekend number 1. And you don't really have time to feel it out and figure things out. You got to be ready to go from weekend number 1 when you play in this league. And especially this year for us, and we opened up with the 2 top finishers in the league last year, 2 teams that are traditionally very good. And so we had to be ready to go from pitch number 1. I think that was an emphasis for us over the fall and over the winter break is just being ready to go at the beginning of the year. And I thought our guys really took a hold of that and did a good job with it. And I think that's why we've been able to have some success so far.
Yeah, you talk about coming out of the gates firing, the sweep of Lubbock Christian, and obviously both of your guys are coming in as top-ranked Lone Star Conference teams from the expectation perspective. But like you said, you're playing in January. Like, how do you get these guys ready when you look at the schedule and you said, oh, man, Lubbock and then Angelo, the first 8 games, that's no way to settle into a season like maybe some other teams can do. How did you get the guys ready, and when did you have a sense that maybe this group would have the potential to put together a start like they have?
Yeah, I think you never really know until you roll the first ball out there and we get going, right? But we've got a veteran team. We've like a lot of Division II baseball is this year. I mean, we've got 18 seniors on this team. A lot of those guys have been here for a long time, and then some of those guys are new guys. Division I and JUCO transfers, but they've played a lot of baseball. And a lot of them are 22, 23, even 24 years old. And so I think that's a big contributing factor is just the maturity of the group that we have. They know what's at stake, and they know what we were walking into, in Lubbock and what the matchup was going to be like between us and Angelo. And so, I think guys were ready for that, and they didn't let the moments get too big. They just found a way to stay within ourselves. What we did a really good job of and have done a really good job of in the first 12 games of the season is really just staying within ourselves, controlling strike zone at the plate, pounding the strike zone on the mound. We've just done a really good job of not beating ourselves and finding a way, to just, put some things together offensively and just find a way to get ourselves out of some jams on the mound. And so, if we can do that all year long and be mature and approach the game in that way, then I think we've got a chance to be successful.
And speaking of being successful with this hot start, it's kind of a two-part question. One, does it set the tone? And two, we talked a little bit about winning on the road is hard in college baseball, regardless of who you play. How does that translate into success as well as, setting that tone?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, especially in this league. There's a lot of long bus rides. I think our average trip is about 7 hours. We're really excited next weekend to drive 4 hours to Austin to face St. Ed's. It's tough, but, I think one thing that helps is we've got some depth on this year's team. We've played a lot of different guys. If you've kind of looked into the numbers, we pitched a lot of different arms. Our starting pitching has been pretty good, especially our first three guys. And so that's allowed us to really have the full bullpen available for game 4 on Sunday, which is extremely important. And so I think all those factors, because we've got some guys that are banged up right now, everyday guys that were in there early that haven't been there. And but the guys that are stepping in are just as capable and playing really well. And so I think depth has been a big part of our success so far. And then just the expectation, I mean, if you're going to win this league and have a chance to do that, you got to be able to sweep. 3 out of 4 every weekend is not going to get it done. And so being able to, when you have that opportunity, to win a series, after the doubleheader on Saturday, and then when you have an opportunity to sweep on Sunday, finish the job, I think our guys understand the importance of that. And they've brought, the right type of energy, to the ballpark every day so far. And that's been a big piece of us being able to have success early.
And Coach, I know 9th year here coaching with UT Tyler, and you've led UT Tyler in the transition into the Lone Star Conference. And one thing we always notice with the Lone Star with these 4-game weekends, and perhaps even more early on, is some of the offensive numbers that are pretty crazy. And well, that's one way to describe at least your team's numbers right now. You're hitting 346 right now as a team, which is 5th best in the country. First, I wanted to just ask overall about the offense and what makes them so dangerous. But then on top of that, is that something that you think evens out throughout the year? Early on, high numbers, Lone Star Conference seems like it's so hard to understand what the trend is, at least in the league.
Yeah, the trend is that the wind is going to be blowing in some direction really hard somewhere in West Texas. We're kind of the norm over here in East Texas, like it's a normal ballpark and the wind doesn't blow 25 miles an hour every day. But everywhere else we go, our hitters love to get on the road. And most of the time the wind seems to be blowing out. Definitely you have your days where it's blowing in. But I think, the places that we play, the conditions that we play in, I think are a factor in the offensive numbers. And I think obviously playing 4-game weekends are a factor in the offensive numbers too. It's pretty taxing on a pitching staff to try to play all those innings over a weekend. And so, man, when you get to game 4, there's a chance. And then, I think the trend overall in college baseball is that offense is up. And then I would say, especially at our level, I think you have older players, especially older hitters, specifically at our level. And I feel like the maturity of offenses is a big factor in that. That's what I've seen over the last several years. And like you said, I think you said we're 5th in the country in average. I think we're 3rd in our league in average. So that tells you how offensive the Lone Star Conference is. And you guys even mentioned, we pitched it really well at International. Man, the numbers don't show it, but we pitched it pretty well the first 2 weekends too. We just played 2 of the best offenses in the country. And so, yeah, you got to be able to score to win in this league. And I think that's something that we found out early on as we came into the league and made the transition. It was a little different than what we were used to. And, we kind of figured out, okay, we got to be able to go get dudes that can score runs. We got to be able to have some bat speed, and we got to be able to score a lot of runs to compete in this league.
And speaking of, being able to score a lot of runs and driving in runs and just everything. We want to talk about a guy by the name of Drew Schmidt, someone who, as a freshman, just had 79 at-bats, then comes on the scene, 41 at-bats so far this season, hitting .512. Talk about his impact with the offense so far.
Yeah, man, it's really fun to watch. He's a kid, we recruited out of Louisville High School, saw him in the summer at a 5-tool tournament in Melissa, Texas, and kind of watched him play on defense and saw the way he played the game and was very attracted to that. Found a way to get back up and watch him again the next morning, 8 o'clock. Nobody's there, and we're like, man, this kid's really good. He's got a chance to be really good. And so came in as a freshman. We had a senior transfer grad student that was starting at shortstop over him. And he slowly worked his way in there and didn't have a great offensive year, but needed to make some swing changes. Some of the things that we have down here, we're fortunate, really. We've got the Aware cameras, we've got TrackMan. And so we're able to kind of sit down and put some data together and look at some film and kind of make some swing changes going into the summer. Drew was able to stay around and put some work in for the first month of the summer and make some of those changes that were a little bit uncomfortable at times. And then he was able to go out to Victoria in the TCL and kind of put that in game. And I think he really came into the season just prepared and with a lot of confidence in some of the work that he'd done and the changes that he had made, not just to his swing, but to his body over the last year as a freshman. And so, is he going to hit .516 all year long? I mean, that'd be really cool if he did. But at the end of the day, the kid's just having good at bats, man. He's playing the game hard like he always has. And he hasn't been overmatched, and we've faced some really good arms. And so it's really, as a coach, gratifying and exciting to see a kid who's come in and put in that kind of time and effort and work and have the success that he's having so far.
Yeah, it's really just jumped off the page. And I know that he's the first that you probably look at. But like you said earlier, when you're hitting 346 as a team, like you said, you've played a lot of guys. It's a very deep lineup. But Drew Schmidt's start was something we certainly couldn't ignore because, I mean, he's only struck out twice, and just the ability to put together the good at-bats, it's been fun to see. Now, I want to get back to maybe some other guys on offense in a moment, but I want to talk about the mound. You guys have been lights out at times, particularly when your ace rolls out there. Tell us a little bit about just what Rawley Hector's brought to the table, because, I mean, 18 strikeouts and a 1.56 ERA to start the year. He just looks like he's kind of been nasty to start this season.
Yeah, man, Rawley is he's the kind of kid that every coach wants on their team. He's a coach's kid, grew up around the game. So he really gets it. If you've been around coaches' kids, you understand what that means. And I'm a coach's kid myself. So, he shows up with the right attitude, mentality every day, such positivity. He's not just about himself. He's a very selfless, team guy. He's a great leader, in our program. And, all those things have nothing to do with his ability on the mound, but they have everything to do with who he is as a person. And I think, he puts that kind of discipline and effort into his own work on a daily basis as well. And, and so I think that's a big part of why he's been successful for us. Obviously, last year had a really good season, came in as a guy, I think started on Sunday for us at the beginning of the year. We had a few injuries and ended up being bumped to Friday by the end of the year. And really just no moment, gets too big for him. I mean, he was a pretty highly recruited kid out of high school, was on Team USA as a 16-year-old, was committed to Texas A&M, played there as a freshman, pitched a decent amount, coaching change, ended up having to go somewhere else, went to Louisiana Tech, didn't have a great year there, and was looking for somewhere to play. And the connection for us was actually the first head coach here at UT Tyler, James Valade, who's actually coaching a high school in the Dallas area now, was good friends with Rawley's dad from back in the day. And that's how he ended up here. And he's been a true blessing to have in this program and on our team. And like I said, he's a leader on and off the field. And, he pounds a strike zone with a sinker and a slider and has a good changeup, and just, he's a competitor, man. He throws his best pitches when it matters the most. And so that's obviously something you always want in your guys when they're out there.
And kind of a follow-up to that, Coach, is, having Rawley be able to start game one, how does that help you in terms of a 4-game weekend, in terms of managing a pitching staff?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can get off to a good start and you get 5 or 6 innings out of your Friday guy and you only got to go to the bullpen for 1 or 2 guys possibly, you're set up pretty good. And so it's important that Friday guy is consistent because, when you got to go get that guy early and you dig into the bullpen on Friday and you got 4 games on the weekend, it can be tough. So, he, like I said, and, really I would say last weekend was obviously numbers wise, but just as far as his stuff and him having his best stuff, last weekend was his best outing. His first 2 weekends, even though, he did a good job of getting us deep into the ball game and giving us a chance to win, weren't his best stuff. He was missing with the fastball a little bit, spraying it and struggling to get the changeup over. Really the slider was the pitch that got us through the first 2 weekends. But this past weekend, he was really good with all 3, made some adjustments. And I think we're in a good spot moving forward. So just excited to continue to watch him, out there on Friday nights this year.
And so, I mean, I think a lot of people are, and obviously we could talk a lot about the one of the best pitchers in the league and the reigning pitcher of the year in the conference. Do want to talk about some other offensive bats, though. I know with Kyle Atkinson's return to the team for return to the lineup this year, he had a big year last year, 423 average, and then Tanner Hornback's hitting 450. Who are some of these guys? I know that you did lose some key pieces of a nice offense last year. You obviously got some big returners, and some of these newcomers are stepping up, and it seems like the blend's been big. What's been the key to that, and who are some guys that are stepping up outside of who we have already talked about in Drew Schmidt in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to name them all, man. It's been really good. I think the cool thing about this offense and how we've our guys been able to put it together is, we've got a pretty good group of Division I transfers that are seniors, older guys that have seen a lot of good pitching and played a lot of good baseball. And then we've got a really good group of younger guys who were freshmen last year, either here or Tanner Hornback, you mentioned, was a freshman, at Baton Rouge Community College. So we've got a group of like sophomores who are really talented. And then we've got a group of seniors who are really experienced and also very talented. And I think that our young guys have really been able to draw on the experience of our older guys, and they've done a really good job of working together. Our older guys, those guys have seen a lot, and they've played a lot of good baseball, and they've seen a lot of really good arms, and they really just don't get overmatched by anything. And that's been the impressive part so far, is just our ability to stay in the strike zone and just not really get overmatched. And I think that has built confidence into some of these younger guys who have some of the same abilities, but maybe haven't had that same in-game experience. And I think those pieces kind of coming together has been why the offense has been so successful so far this year.
And Coach, speaking of kind of records here, right? You recently got your 400th win as a head coach, and also the week before, Caston Mason set the home run record at UT Tyler. Talk about his development over the last few years to be able to get to this point.
Yeah. Caston was a guy that came to us, and we recruited him. I want to say it was during COVID. He's a Rockwall kid. And so that's, for people that don't know, the Dallas area. And so played at Rockwall Heath, won a state championship his senior year of high school baseball. So he's been around the game at a high level coming in, and he was a big, he's a big frame, right? And so he came in, needed to put a little size on and gain some strength, and he actually redshirted for us his first year. He didn't play. We had a pretty veteran group that year, and he had a little bit of swing and miss and had some things that we had to make some adjustments swing-wise, and he was able to, again, a credit to our strength coach and our strength program, put on some good weight, get stronger, make some swing adjustments, I think for him, mature a little bit, and then had a really good freshman year. Nobody knew who he was. I think he hit 5 home runs in the first 2 weekends of the year. His freshman year, they were just throwing fastballs at him. He was hitting them, 450 feet. And then they figured out who he was and they started pitching him differently. And he kind of went through it. He still put up some power numbers, but went through some struggles where he was chasing and kind of towards the end of his freshman year, really through his sophomore year. And I think really this last season and this summer going into this fall has been a big just step forward for him in maturity as an offensive player, just commanding the strike zone a little bit better. Just knowing, what he's good at and what he's not good at, making some small adjustments. And, so it's been fun to watch. Like I said, he's a big kid. He's a great kid. Another one of, our kids that has been in this program and developed here. He's put in a ton of time and effort and work to get to where he is today. And it's always awesome to watch those kids come in, develop, get better, and then watch them go out there and have success and mature, not just as hitters, but also as human beings. So it's been really fun to watch his development, and he's still got the rest of this year and one more. So hopefully he can keep adding on to that record. And maybe nobody will ever get to it. Hopefully somebody will one day, but they'll have a lot of home runs to hit to get there. So.
Well, Coach, speaking of being at places for a long time, obviously Robert brought it up, but 400 wins for you, big accomplishment that you got on Friday night. And I know that has to what does that feel like for you to get that honor and to have the success that you have had at really a bunch of different levels of college baseball, but one staple has been you've had a lot of success wherever you've been, Coach.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I mean, I think that the cool thing about it is you get to talk to a lot of people that were a part of all those wins because, people are excited about that. And so, I'm, getting text messages and phone calls from players, former players, families and parents. It's the head coach gets the wins on their record, but you guys have been around baseball enough to know that it takes a lot of people to win a baseball game. I've been blessed to work with guys who believed in the vision that we're putting on the field. And I've had a ton of really good assistant coaches that I've been blessed to work with. And they're such a huge piece of that puzzle, man. And you can't do it by yourself. You got to have a guy that can go recruit. You got to have a guy that can bring in players. You got to have guys that are going to share your vision and passion. It's not always easy to find that, especially at lower levels. And, we've been blessed, we're blessed here to have an administration that sees the value in college athletics and college baseball. And we've been able to keep this staff pretty much together, at least Coach White, myself, Coach Pope, for the last 6 years. And I think having stability in a coaching staff at the Division II level is a big advantage. And so that's a big piece of our success here. But man, so many people ultimately, my family, our coaches' families, there's so much time that goes into this away from our families, and they have to be bought in. And I heard somebody say, I think it was Coach Freeman at Notre Dame with football. They were talking about, how do you balance being a head coach and being a family man? And he mentioned, you don't balance it, you blend it. You put your family together with the program and they're a part of it. And that's really the only way it works. And I've never heard it put that way, but I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I've got 2 boys and my wife, and we've got a life separate from baseball, but this is our life as well. So they're at the ballpark every chance that they get. And that's a big piece of it. And then ultimately, man, the players on the field. I mean, those are the guys that go out there in battle and have a chance to win and lose baseball games. And we just try to do our best to put them in a position to succeed. And I've been blessed to coach a lot of really good players that really force me to bring my best every single day because they bring their best every single day. And I want to make sure that we're giving our best to them. So.
And Coach, the final question I have for you is for UT Tyler fans and D2 baseball fans, what should we expect from this team going forward?
Man, I hope what you see is just more of the same. I mean, I don't think we're a finished product. We've had some success early, but there's some areas where we can still get a lot better. We haven't played great defense so far. We've got to do a better job of that if we're going to have success in the long term. I think that, on the pitching side of things, just being able to make, our good pitches in the fringes of the strike zone and outside the zone when we're ahead in the count, being able to punch guys out when we need to punch out, and just being able to continue to put together offense. I mean, we're not a finished product. We still have a lot of work to do. And I think, these guys have a passion for growth and getting better each and every day. Our guys are here all the time putting in work, whether we're practicing or whether it's not practice time or whatever. I mean, there's guys at the facility from 10 o'clock in the morning until we practice, and then until the lights, shut them off at night. And so, I think that's been a mark of our program, and something that the older guys in our program have really passed on to younger guys. And I think that, that's a big piece of success. And I haven't seen any slowdown in that since we started winning some baseball games. Our guys are still here putting in time and putting in their work. And it's not just the guys that are playing. It's some of the guys that aren't. It's some of the guys that are playing part-time. And I think that's a good mark of things to come. And, hopefully we can stay healthy and just continue to put good games together day after day, and continue to put good days together at practice and get better every day.
Well, Coach, thanks for taking the time to join us here on the Division II Baseball Podcast. After you took a trip down to Laredo, got a sweep, now you get to come home, and best of luck for you here this weekend with everything. But again, we really appreciate your time. It's been an awesome start to the season, and we wish you the best of luck the rest of the way.
Thank you, guys. Y'all are welcome down to Tyler, Texas anytime, man. Just let me know. We'll put you up. We'll take care of you.
Hey, we appreciate that, Coach. And that is Brent Porche, head coach at UT Tyler.